actually triple. So you had the idea of the three Brigids. You had and so they come in different ways. There's different aspects of her, but she was the goddess of smithing, which seems, doesn't seem like a very feminine activity, but it's fire and creation. And again, it's that liminal thing of taking a metal and turning it into something else, of it going through fire and flame and water and air to become something new. So she has a lot of that energy in her, of that transition time. So she was the goddess of smithing. She was the goddess of poetry. And if you think really of poetry, it's the same thing or a similar thing of taking words and playing with them. So they don't actually, you can't land in a poem as if it's a description of a tree or something. You have to experience the feeling that these words give you that are not exactly direct. Poetry is full of images, it's full of this shifting, and it plays with words in a way our logical thinking doesn't. And so she has that gift as well. And the other one was she's the goddess of healing. And healing very much again is in that same place of transitions, of moving from illness to health. And perhaps it was the other way too. Maybe, how did you move from health to illness? She has a lot of this transitional energy and bringing something new from this state to this state, creating something new. But one of the old stories, which is the one that for some reason it's been with me both with Brigid, but also because I keep looking at the world we're in and thinking, oh my goodness, um, how do we decide who's our leaders in this world? How do we decide how this world is going to function? What draws us forth? And in Irish mythology, there's a story of the time that Tuatha Dé Danann had come to Ireland, and those are the people of the goddess Danu. And this is when they still lived on the land. They were not long in Ireland. They had come on their boat and they were now living there, but they kept having conflict with the people who were already there, who were called the Favora, or the Fomorians in English. They often call them the Fomorians. And these were, in Irish mythology, they're regarded as kind of dark forces, of being a little bit uncomfortable, of not being very um, they were not regarded as nice people. Some people have awful descriptions of them being kind of serpent-like and things like that, but they're actually a people who were very different to the Tuatha Dé Danann. And Brigid was a member of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And um, at one stage, after one of the great battles, the king had lost his arm and he was no longer king. He was Nuada, was no longer king. So they invited a man who was already half Fomorian and half Tuatha Dé Danann, called Breis the Beautiful, to be king of the land. And Brigid married him as a way of keeping peace in the land. But Breis was actually not a very good king. This is the thing about Irish kings. If they weren't very good kings, you knew it because the people suffered. And what he did, instead of maintaining a balanced rule, he was actually working just for one side, working for the Fomorians, if you like. And he kept the people of the Tuatha Dé Danann in poverty. He took their property, he took their land, took their wealth, and gave it to the Fomorians. And the land was ill, they say. The crops didn't grow, the people were unhappy, nothing was right. And they saw that as a sign that this was not a good leader. So Breis and Brigid had been married a while because they already had at least one son whose name was Ruadan, but they also had other children in some of the other stories. But Ruadan was important. So when his father was told, you can no longer be king because you are not a good king. The land is suffering from you, it is not prospering, so you are not a good king, so you can't be king. And when he went back to the people, the Fomorian people, his son went with him. And his son's name was Ruadan. And Ruadan was a young man with his father, and Brigid, they don't actually say where Brigid was. She seems to maybe have stayed with the Tuatha Dé Danann, but it's not quite clear. They don't give you all these details in the story. But the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Fomorians went back to battle, fighting with each other. And so they had a large, big battle. The Battle of Moytura was going on. And the Fomorian chiefs and Breis the Beautiful were there, and they were saying, what is happening? Every day we fight these warriors, and every day they come out with new spears and new swords and new weapons that are actually sharp and beautiful and working, while ours are getting dull and blunt from being used. What's going on? And every day, these warriors that we injure or kill, the next day they come back and they're back on the battlefield, whole and new. So what's going on? And they send Ruadon, the son of Brigid and the son of Bresh, back to the Tuatha De Danann because he can pass. He can go there as a Tuatha De Danann, and he goes there. And he stays in the camp and he looks around and visits and he says, oh, look, the smiths are working, 3 smiths working constantly to renew the weapons, to make them fresh, to make them new. And then he finds the healing well, which we journeyed with during the festival. He finds the healing well, which the god of healing, Dinkacht, keeps putting the warriors in and healing them and sending them back out. And so Ruadon goes back to his father and he says, this is what's happening. The govnu is the smith, is fixing all the weapons and making new ones all the time. The warriors are being healed in the well of healing. This is what's happening. And they say to him, you go back, Ruadon, and kill the smith and destroy the well. So Ruadon goes back, and he goes back and goes to the smiths and he says, I need a new weapon. I need a new spear. Can you make me one? And so they do. They work on it. There are 3 smiths, but the main one is the governor who at the end puts the whole spear together and hands it to Ruadon. And he says, here is your weapon. And Ruadon takes it and he stabs the smith with it. And the governor's injured, but he's not killed. So he pulls the sword out, the spear out from him, and he kills Ruadon with it. And the whole world seems to fall apart because Brigid realizes her beloved son has been killed. And so she just does the quinu. It's the first time of this great crying. It's a tradition that died out. My father heard the quinu at the funerals when he was a child, but it's a special way of crying, of making a vocalization about grief that women could do. And it died out in the 1940s or 50s in Ireland. My dad heard it once at a funeral. He said he'll never forget it. It was so eerie. But this is the start of that tradition. This is the start of grieving. How do we grieve? How do we let out the words that need to be spoken about what needs to be said in our grieving? Or even not the words, because this is the thing about feeling, is really it's not about the words, but the sounds that we can make. And so this was Brigid. There's like her sitting with the chieftain and nursing him through into his dying. And then there's her there with her son just being killed because he came to destroy. Her son came to destroy, maybe influenced too much by his father's needs. Ruadon doesn't seem to have any stand in himself, but he goes because his father asks him. He goes because this is asked of him, and he is killed. And so Brigid is there, and she is the one who says, this is the mother's grieving. This is what needs to come forth from me. These are the sounds of what I need to put out because I am grieving. So that is one of her stories. And to me, it's one of the really powerful ones because it's, I'm losing myself here for a second. The other to note with her is that she was, because of this familiarity, I've lost Zoom for 1 second, there we go. Because of her familiarity with death, she also, I mean, this is one of the things I get into, which you won't find written many places, except I've written about it a bit, is about the voodoo tradition of Maman Brigid, who is the voodoo goddess, the Loa of voodoo, who's attached to the graveyards. And she is Brigid as well. And there's there's a thing of how Irish traditions got to the Caribbean, which I'm not going to go into right now. But this is the thing of her association so much is with this transitional place. And she's also, because she was the one who could protect you. She knew about these transitions. And I just want to pull up. This is one of the prayers that used to be said. They repeated what they called the genealogy of Brigid. So they would say she's the radiant flame of gold, the foster mother of Christ. And this is a prayer that was written in Christian times. So they're talking more about this idea of the saint, but the saint actually pulled in all the characteristics of the goddess at the time. Who, this is what's interesting, is they go through the names of her forefathers, and then they say, every day and every night that I say the names of the genealogy of Bride. So they're talking about all her forefathers and foremothers. I shall not be killed. I shall not be harried. I shall not be put in a cell. I shall not be wounded. Nor shall Christ leave me in forgetfulness. No fire, no sun, no moon shall burn me. No lake, no water, nor sea shall drown me. No arrow of fairy, nor dart of fay shall wound me. In other words, the other world is not going to come and get me. I won't be injured by things I don't know about. I am under the protection of my foster mother, the beloved Brigid, which is the Irish word for Brigid, another way of naming her. So she was this great protectress because she knew those places of transition. She knew how to protect someone from the death by water, the death by fire, the death by flame, the death by being closed, by being drowned in water, or being killed by air. So her real role was this protectress, but she knew the transition place. And this is one of the things. So there's two elements, I think, for her that I'm offering today. Something else may pop up, and I'm going to give you a chance to throw in whatever is awake in you if you want right now. But there is this idea that she knows the sounds you need to make in grieving. She knows that. But she knows that because she knows the transitions that need to happen. She knows what it is to move from living to dead. She knows what it is to go through all these places. And she also knows how not to do it if you need not to do it. And to me, she's just this remarkably powerful figure that carries these wonderful energies about those places that we pass through, if you like. I move from this place in myself to this place. You know, I'm trying to move through these things in myself. If someone is dying, how can we sit with them? Brigid knew how to sit with them. There's that lovely story again of her as a saint sitting with a dying chieftain, and she just picks the straw, the rushes up from the floor, and weaves a cross out of them. Or sometimes it's the Driscoll, the three-pointed one. But she knew how to sit there and be present. She knew how to say, hey, this is how you transition. And this might be what's waiting for you at the other side. And it's not just the dying of others outside ourselves and the grieving of others outside ourselves. I think Brigid is a wonderful goddess or saint, a wonderful teacher for how to be with the transitions in ourselves. You know, when we're changing inside ourselves, when we're moving inside ourselves, how do we do that? And can we be in that place? Can I sit with the part of me that's transitioning? Can I sit there and hold the space so as this aspect of me dies and this new one comes in, I'm still okay. I can be there. I'm not just the part of me that needs to transition. I'm not just the part of me who may even really want to die in some way. I'm other to that. And I can be in those difficult places in myself. And when you can be with them in yourself, you can be with them in another person. And so this is why I think Brigid is just wonderful in so many ways, with these transitions of the words, of fire, of water, of moving from one place to another, that she could do these things with the elementally, with the elements, with the spoken words, the words that escape from our breath out into the air, and they're picked up by someone else. She knew how to make those magical, transitioning places of poetry. And that's not to discount, of course, how to be with the dying. And I think this year in particular, as we work our way through a global, worldwide pandemic where many people are dying, where there's a lot of uncertainty and unknown, we need to learn to be in some way with dying itself and death. And again, this is Brigid sitting with the chieftain, or perhaps grieving her son, learning and teaching, learning herself first to make those sounds, allowing herself, perhaps is a better word, to make those sounds of grief when Duodon is killed, but also allowing us to give voice in some way to the sounds we need to make in those places of death and dying. That's one of those things Brigid knows. Brigid knows these transitions. Brigid knows that we need to move, that we need to embrace death in some way, that we can go from this place to this place. And sometimes it's a place of aliveness to the unknown for us, all of us left. Because this is the thing about death, I think it's most things we can know. If you know, walk down the street, if you go through the fogs, all of those things, you go from here to this place. But usually, you know, when someone dies, we are left on this place and we don't know what's really happened. We haven't, it means the one experience you have that you can't really come back and say, this is what's happened. Very few people, you know, it depends on what someone's spirituality is, how they see that. But basically, we are the ones left with that. And so we need to figure out our own transition in there. How do we grieve? How do we let go? How do we transition in ourselves? And for that, Brigid, I think, is one of the great saints or goddesses, whichever you want to name her as. A journey to Brigid and just see what she brings to us. As I say, there's all sorts of elements in her. She's a poet, a smith. She knows words. She knows fire. She knows healing. She's a good one to visit like that. She knows the places, how to move from one place to other. She's very comfortable with that middle ground, that in between place. Before you've left one place, but you're not in somewhere else. She knows that. She can sit with you as you transition, just like she could sit with the dying, just like she can move in those places. But she also knows what needs to come out of you for grief in death, when there's things to let go of, things to do. So just take a few minutes to get ready and settle yourself down. The journey audio will start in about 2 minutes. Okay, just really allow the surface you're sitting on or lying on to hold you beautifully. And take a deep breath or two and create space in yourself. You've heard a lot of words, a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas around Brigid, but let them all have their space so that this moment too can have its own space. Just taking a moment to do that, to notice, to observe yourself, and to trust that your body knows how you need to lie, how you need to sit for this journey. And really allow yourself be held by whatever you're sitting against or on, or about whatever you're lying against or on. And out of those places where you are held and touched, allow roots to grow from your body into the earth. And really give yourself permission to be grounded, to be earthed, to be held and nurtured. And let those roots be as they need to be, as deep and as broad and as strong as they need to be. And allow yourself the permission to accept from Earth the nurturing and holding she offers you. And as you settle in and feel how grounded you are, allow your attention to move to your breathing and to breath, to that in and out movement that happens without you usually even thinking about it. But watching in yourself that space that's inside of you grow bigger and larger as you breathe in. And how gracefully and effortlessly your body lets go back to sky, back to air, those things you don't need. And that you too can ride on that. And with each in-breath, take in a little bit of sky. And each out-breath, you give back out to sky, into all that space that's available to you. And knowing that all the space is available to you, that sky offers you this, and that sky even reaches beyond what we know, out into the universe to offer you that if it's needed as well. Just feeling breath, and then allowing your breath to be the pathway or the stairs or the movement you need to find that place within you where you meet the animals and guides of your own deep wisdom, of your deep imagination today. Today we're going to call out and ask for the animal or guide, or for Brigid, the one to bring us to Brigid, or maybe it's Brigid herself who will come. But giving yourself the space for whoever needs to come. And when your guide comes, no matter what it is, Brigid, an animal, another guide, darkness, lightness, fog, water, space, whoever is there, just say hello. Thank you for coming. Ask, what do you need from me? And ask, what needs to happen between you and your guide today? And allow your guide the space to respond to you. If there's something very specific you wanted to journey to or with today, tell your guide about it. Ask your guide the question. If there's something less specific, you might want to check about the transitions you need to know about. What is the transition in me I need to pay attention to? Just remember to stay with that guide. Tell the guide what's happening. Communicate your feelings, their thoughts, whatever else is going on. And really allow your guide to guide you, to respond to you. If it feels right, you can ask if there's something you need to grieve, if there's a grieving you need to do, and how best you may do that. There may be words to be said, or sounds to be made, or things to be done. St. Brigid is the goddess of smithing and healing and poetry. Maybe there are words you need to know, poems you need to say. Maybe there's a weapon or something else you need to craft for yourself. Maybe there's a healing that needs to happen. So give space to that and ask her, or whoever your guide is, what thing do you most need to pay attention to in these gifts that Brigid gives? if it seems right for your journey, if it seems appropriate. You can ask your guide if there's something you need to let go of, and if there's something you need to take on. Miss Brigid is the goddess of transitioning, of moving from death to life, but also into life. Perhaps like the newborn spring lambs, or the new babies, or the new tiny spring, there's something to be born, fresh and new in you, that you can ask her about. What is this thing I need to give birth to? What is this newness I need to nurture in me? And if it seems right for your journey, you could ask your guide if there's something you need protection from, if there's some gift of protection that you need. And that Brigid, these stories of Brigid can help you with that. And at any time, you can simply ask your guide, what else needs to happen now? If you need more time, take all the time you need. There's plenty of time, there's no rush. If any of you happen to be finished, do make sure to thank your guides and to check with them if anything else at all needs to happen. For those of you who are still with your guides, stay with them. Really allow them to guide you. So if you can, if you're in a place you can do that, ask your guides to help you bring your journey to a close in the next few minutes, taking the time you need to get to that place in yourself, keeping in touch with your guide, and letting them know what's going on within you. And then when you're ready, you thank them and allow the space you're in, your body and the space you're in, to begin to draw you back to the present moment, to this time. And allowing it to happen in the pace that's right for you, because there is plenty of time. And anyone who's back can feel free to make notes or just be there with their feelings or thoughts in the space you're in for a while until we're sure everyone is back.